Yeah. Right. 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 I think according to Texas state law, they have the authority to do that. So basically, if you're a legislator, you're a representative, and you don't show up, you refuse to show up, the governor can arrest you or require you. You need to be there. That's part of your responsibility. So according to Texas, again, every state may have different laws about this, but according to Texas state law, I think they have the authority to actually do that. So you can't just say, well, I'm not going to show up to and be there, not be there for any reason. So they have the authority. Again, I'm not a legal expert on Texas state law, but I believe that certain states give the governor the authority to do that as the chief executive. Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Right. Right. Do they do what? They come back to Texas. Right. Without any question. Right. The governor of Texas. Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm not an expert in Texas state law. Yeah. Yeah. But see, there's a problem. If you're a state and you have your representatives and then they flee the state, they leave the state, and they don't come and do their job, then I think as a governor, you have the authority to say you can't just flee the state to avoid your responsibility or avoid this. So I think that's what the governor is trying to do. He's trying to say, if you flee the state, if you run away from the state, then I have the authority to go arrest you and bring you back to the state, basically. Well, yeah, but it's the avoidance of your responsibility. If I'm elected to do a job, if I'm a legislator, and then I just flee, I leave the country, I leave the state because I don't want to fulfill my responsibility, I would think that in some cases the executive, which is the governor, would have the authority to say, well, then we will call you, bring you back, we will arrest you and bring you back to the state, because you're avoiding your responsibility that you were elected to. So you were elected to do a job, right? That's your job under the law. And then you flee, you run away and say, I'm not going to do my job. So then the governor says, okay, I'm going to send the authorities to get you and bring you back to do your job. So, yeah. Right. Yeah, I don't know. I don't understand Texas law. So, yeah. Yeah. Well, it is, but again, this is all, there's a lot of, this happens, this isn't the first time this has happened in Texas or other states. And so it's complicated. Every state has its own unique laws for these kinds of things. So what he's talking about is right now in America, there's certain states, I believe Texas is one. What they do is they have districts, right? You know, in Taiwan we have different区, right? And these districts, often the different political parties want to change the districts to give themselves more representatives in the state. So if you're the 共和党 or the 民主党 and you want to change the district lines to give yourself an advantage in the election, you know, the 选举, you know, sometimes if you change the lines a bit, that means that we get more representatives and then the other party gets less representatives. And so this gets very, sometimes it becomes a competition, you know, to see who can do what. But, you know, like he's referring to different states, America is a very unique system because, you know, in Taiwan we have, you know, the law, right? The Taiwan law, right? But in America, America is a collection of 50 states, right? And that's very important to remember because it's different from Taiwan. Every state has its own authority and its own laws. And I've talked about this before. It's just like when you're driving on the interstate highway in America, you're going from one state to the next state, the speed limit will change sometimes when you drive from one state to another state, because the different state, one state will say, oh, our speed limit is our speed limit is 65, and then maybe the next state says, no, our speed limit is 75. And so it may change. And so just like that, laws will change between different states. Now, of course, there are federal laws too. Federal laws mean national laws. But those laws, are applied to the whole country. But the federal government, when I say federal, I mean central, 中央政府. The federal government's power is limited by the Constitution, by the 美国宪法. Because remember, when America was founded, 250 years ago, the people who wrote our 宪法, our Constitution, did not want to give too much power to the federal government, to the 中央政府. So there's always a bit of, we say, push and pull between, or checks and balances between the federal government and the state government. Sometimes the federal government says, we're going to come in and we're going to do this, or you need to do this. And then sometimes the state government says, no, I'm not going to do that. We're going to do something else. So this is it's an interesting system, but I think it works. I think it works because, our whole goal is not to have too much power concentrated in one level. Remember? Because American, 美国革命, revolution, was because people didn't like this one strong power that was dictating everything to everybody else. So each state said, no, we have our own authority. We have our own power that we keep, and you can't tell us what to do. So it's very interesting. As you travel around America, sometimes states or even cities or towns will have their own unique laws that are kind of interesting. So, yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Recall rights. I think they do, but I don't know what the requirement is. Yeah, I don't know what. Yeah, I think there probably is. If a member of Congress, if they commit a crime or they do something that, then they can be recalled. Yeah. Yeah, kicked out basically. Yeah. And so I don't know. There's a lot of. Yeah, there's a lot of different laws about that, so yeah. Okay, so why don't we get back to this article. So this is interesting. It says, Netanyahu brands Australian PM, that means Prime Minister, Albanese weak, okay? So when we brand somebody, brand has, this word brand, B-R-A-N-D, it has many different meanings. One meaning is 品牌, right? So, somebody might say, what's your favorite shoe brand? And maybe somebody says Adidas, or Nike, So that's a brand. Brands are very important. But if you brand somebody, like you use it as a 动词, what does that mean? He is branded as. Yeah. So he used a word that's good, labeled, okay? Now label is an interesting word too, because a label is like a tag, right? When you go to the 超级市场 and or you go to let's say you go to the department store, 百货公司, and you're going to buy clothes, often there's a label, like a tag. That's another word that's kind of similar, tag. Okay? So tag is like a sticker or 贴纸 or something that hangs off that tells you what it is. And so you can put a tag on something or a label on something, but brand and label means to call somebody something, right? So if you say he was branded as a coward or a traitor or something like that, or he was labeled as a something, that means to put this name or this adjective, 形容词 on that person, to say that they are this. Now, I will say that the word brand, if you say someone has been branded as, it usually has a negative, 否定的意思. You don't usually say he was branded as a hero. I guess you could say that, but it sounds a little bit strange. But I'll tell you what else this word, and I think there's another 动词 that is probably the reason why this is related. A brand is also like a cow. You know, in America you have the ranches, right, with many cows. And what they do is when they, it sounds kind of cruel, but when they want to, a different farm, you know, 农场, wants to make sure people know whose cows belong to them, they will take iron with a hot thing and they will brand it. They call that branding on the side of the cow. So it's almost like a logo of the ranch on the cow, and then that will stay there forever. So that when you see that cow, you're like, oh, that cow belongs to that farm, and that cow belongs to that farm. Does everybody understand that? You know what I'm talking about? Okay, so that's called branding. So I think that's where this word actually comes from. It doesn't come from the word 品牌. It comes from the word to brand, you know, to put a label on somebody and to say that is what they are. Okay? Does everybody understand that? Okay, so he was branded as being weak. Netanyahu, of course, is the Israeli prime minister from Israel and Australia, and he says this guy is weak. Okay, so let's look at this article and see why he's saying that. Okay, it says Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese yesterday brushed off accusations from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that the Australian leader is a weak politician who has betrayed Israel by recognizing a Palestinian state. Okay, so you all know where Palestine is, right? If you take an N and add an E, Palestine. Why don't we say it together? Palestine. 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 And then as a 形容词, Palestinian. Palestinian. Okay, so the reason why obviously Benjamin Netanyahu is upset is because the Australian leader has recognized, meaning that when we say recognize, it means to have like to acknowledge, to officially say that there is a Palestinian state. Now, it can also mean to have diplomatic relationship, right? To say we have a 外交关系 with this state, but we recognize. Of course, you know, if you say I recognize him, means, oh, I know who you are. But here it means something more official, right? We acknowledge, we recognize, we say there is a Palestinian state. So here it says he brushed off accusations. What does that mean, to brush off? Yeah, to dismiss, yeah. To say, oh, I don't care, right? So if somebody, you know, peeping, if somebody criticizes you and you say, well, that doesn't matter, I don't care, who cares, right? If somebody says, oh, you know, you're not a very, you know, you're not a very good parent, or you're not a very good teacher, and somebody says, well, I don't care, and you just kind of brush it off, right? It means I dismiss it, I don't care. Okay, I don't care what you say. Okay, so why don't we say it together? Brushed off. Brushed off. To dismiss. To dismiss. Now, dismiss, of course, you know, if I, at the end of the class today, if I say, okay, you are dismissed, it means you can go, you can leave, okay? You know, in America, in more traditional families, and you're having dinner together as a family, the children might say, I finished my meal, can I go watch TV? And your parents might say, okay, you're dismissed, you can go, right? You could, that's very traditional. But anyhow, that dismiss here means to, you don't care, you brush off something. Okay, so let's read this together. Australian Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, yesterday brushed off accusations. Okay, brushed off accusations from Israeli Prime Minister. Okay, again, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that the Australian leader is a weak politician. Who had betrayed Israel by recognizing a Palestinian state. Okay, again, Palestinian state. Okay, so a couple more words. Of course, you know to accuse, right? To accuse means to say that you blame somebody, you say they're bad. This is a 名词. Of course, to accuse is a 动词, A-C-C-U-S-E. Let's say it together, to accuse. To accuse. Right, so sometimes people are accused of crimes or accused of doing something bad. But here we have accusation becomes a noun. There is an accusation against him. So why don't we say that word again, accusation. Accusation. Okay, one more word I forgot to mention. What does to betray mean? Yeah. Yeah, you're not loyal to somebody. You do something that, if somebody trusts you and then you break that trust, then you are betraying them, right? Now, you can betray many things. You can betray someone's friendship. You can betray somebody's trust. You can betray your country, right? Maybe you say, I support Taiwan, but then you betray Taiwan. You do something else, right? So that's called, and of course, someone who betrays their country is called what? A traitor, right? You could, but this word is this word's used more for like countries, right? So why don't we say together, traitor. 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 So if someone says he is a traitor, it means he has betrayed his country. And that crime is called what? What do you call that crime? Treason. Yeah. So that crime of treason. Now this is an actual crime. This is the name of a crime, okay? So if the government arrests this person and they say he has been accused of treason, it's a noun, of course, then that means they have betrayed their country. They have done something to undermine their country. Okay, yes? Sedition, yeah, it's also similar to treason. It's a crime, yeah, the crime of sedition. Yeah, it means to undermine your country. Yeah, it's similar, sedition, yeah. Yeah. Very high. If you're accused of treason, it's a very serious crime, okay? I know in Taiwan right now that's a big debate. What is treason? How serious is it? How much, if you're guilty of treason, how much time do you have in prison? But I know that in America, if you're found guilty of treason, it's a very serious crime. A what? Felony. Yeah, it's a very serious crime. You could spend many years in jail, prison for this. Yeah. Right. You're selling. You're basically serving a foreign power. Yeah. So anyhow, why don't we say this word again? Traitor. Traitor. Treason. Treason. Okay. So yeah. Okay. So let's go on here. It says Netanyahu's rebuke came after an announcement by Albanese on Monday last week that his government's recognition of a Palestinian state would be formalized at the UN General Assembly next month. Okay, what is a rebuke? If you rebuke somebody, what does that mean? Yeah, it's like a very strong criticism of somebody. It kind of, not really blame. Yeah, it's kind of like blame, but it's really to just like a very, very serious peeping. Like if somebody does something and you rebuke them, it means you tell them you're completely wrong. That is, it's not just saying, oh, I don't like it or I don't think you're. A rebuke says, no, this is completely wrong. You should not do this. Okay. So rebuke is a very strong criticism or correction of something that somebody has done. So why don't we say together, rebuke. Rebuke. Yeah, so if someone rebukes you, it means they really don't like what you're doing. Okay, so his rebuke came after an announcement by this Australian leader that his government's recognition would be formalized. Okay, so the word formal is what? Yeah, formal normally means like 正式, right? But if you formalize something, it means you make it official. it becomes official, okay? So you formalize an agreement. It means this agreement is now official. It's a real official agreement. So why don't we say together, first of all, let's say the word formal. Formal. Formalized. Formalized. Now, going back to the word formal, we say formal means 正式. Often, when I get invited to a dinner or a party or something like that, often I'll send a message and I'll say, is this a formal event or is it an informal event? So informal, you had the word in, informal. What does informal mean? Casual, yeah. Like it means it's relaxed, yeah. So now sometimes they also have events we say semi-formal. Okay? So, and he just said the word casual, right? Casual would be informal. So casual means, very 轻松的, right? You don't have to dress up. But semi-formal means, okay, it's not completely informal, but it's not completely formal. It's somewhere in between. So look nice, dress nice, Another word sometimes we say, kind of related to this, we could also say semi-casual. Okay, kind of the same idea, but of course with this word there's more of an emphasis on casual. And this word, there's a little bit more emphasis on formal. Okay, so so anyhow, these are good words to know. So often when you receive an invitation from somebody, it will say dress code. Code, code, C-O-D-E, means how should I dress? How should the guest dress, And so it's very funny. I've known several times foreigners, 外国人, they get invited to a Taiwanese wedding, okay? And they think, oh, this is super formal, right? So the man shows up in a full suit, and the woman's wearing a nice dress, and then they get there, and people are wearing, 牛仔裤 and T-shirts, and they're like, oh, we are overdressed, right? That's what they say. So so anyhow. So why don't we say together, formal. Formal. And then with a informal. Informal. Casual. Casual. Semi-formal. Semi-formal. Of course, you can also say semi, either one. Semi-casual. Semi-casual. Right. So those are, yeah. Yeah. No, I would not, unless it's in Hawaii. In Hawaii, it'd be perfect. But if it was anywhere else, no, this would be underdressed. Yeah. I think if you go to a wedding in America, it really depends, because it depends on the people that are getting married. They might send out a wedding invitation. They might say it's semi-formal. They might say it's semi-casual. They might tell you. But I would say if there's no, generally speaking, I would say weddings tend to be fairly formal. So people will dress up. You probably don't have to wear a suit, but you should look nice. You should dress well. I'll tell you, maybe I shared this with you, but I love Hawaii because in Hawaii there's formal and informal, and the only difference is, and this is true, honestly, if you have we say a Hawaiian shirt, formal means you take your shirt and you tuck it into your pants. Seriously. But informal means you let your shirt hang out like this. So that's the only thing you have to do. If you're let's say I'm wearing a dress like this, and they say, oh, it's a formal event. Okay, great. I put my shirt in my pants. Then I'm okay. Yeah. Seriously, that's how they do it. They put the shirt into their pants. Yeah. So, Okay, so let's read this together. Netanyahu's rebuke. Rebuke. Came after an announcement by Albanese on Monday last week that his government's recognition of a Palestinian state would be formalized at the UN General Assembly next month. Okay. It says here, the announcement was followed by tit-for-tat cancellations of Australian and Israeli visas. Let's read this with that. It says, oh no, that's a photo caption. So let's look at this short. Now, this is interesting. It says a tit-for-tat cancellation of Australian and Israeli visas. Does anyone know what this expression tit-for-tat means? Yeah. It means you do it to me, I'll do it to you. You do it to me, I'll do it to you. It means, yeah. So he used the more formal name of word, actually. Here we are. Reciprocal. So, when we say to reciprocate, I think we've talked about this before. As a 动词, it means if you do this for me, I will do this for you. Okay? Taiwan really likes this, right? So if I told you before, if certain American states, 州, recognize Taiwan's 家事执照, then Taiwan will also recognize their 家事执照 from that state. Not all 50 states, of course, but certain states that recognize Taiwan's 家事执照. So it's called reciprocal agreement. It means we recognize each other. Or we say to reciprocate, okay? Because you gave me this 好处, I will give you the same 好处, right? The same benefit. Okay, so why don't we say it together? To reciprocate. To reciprocate. Reciprocal. Reciprocal. Yes. It's a Latin word. Quid pro quo means to give the same benefit, similar. Yeah. Yeah. It's saying, yeah, we will do the same for you. Yeah. What? Yeah, like an exchange. Yeah. Yeah. So this can have a good meaning or a bad meaning. Usually it has a bad meaning, though. It's like, you did something bad to me, so I'll do something bad for you. Right. Or you hurt me this way, so I'll hurt you in the same way. Okay? So it's mutual. Yeah, actually, that's a good word. It's mutual. So reciprocal, or we could say mutual. Yeah. Yeah. Mutual means both sides, both ways. Okay? Well, it means in English, it just means you do this for me, I do that against you. There's different expressions that kind of get this idea. It's the idea, yeah, tooth for a tooth, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Yeah, that term comes from the Bible, actually, 圣经. Yeah, so anyhow, there's many different words, expressions that get this idea like, I will do the same to you. If you do this to me, I'll do the same to you. Okay. So why don't yeah. Yeah. I thought it was, you're not talking about the Latin. There's a sotto voce. It means to speak very softly. To speak very softly? Nothing's come to mind. If you think of it later, let me know. But yeah, I'm not quite sure about that. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, okay. So why don't we say together, tit for tat? Tit for tat. Okay. So it means that, I think what it means is that the Australians canceled the Israeli visas. So then the Israelis canceled the Australian visas, right? They're 签证, right? Okay. So let's say it together. The announcement was followed by tit-for-tat cancellations of Australian and Israeli visas. Okay. Okay, so here it says, history will remember Albanese for what he is, a weak politician who betrayed Israel and abandoned Australia's Jews, Netanyahu wrote on social media on Tuesday. Okay, I think that he's been a bit dramatic. He's exaggerating a bit. I don't think obviously he's abandoning Australia's Jews, but that's what I think. Netanyahu's very angry, so he's writing these things. Okay, so when we say history will remember, that can have all kinds of ideas behind it. It means that this is something that nobody will ever forget, right? History will remember this, okay? Of course, history is not a person, but it just means that this will not be forgotten, okay? So remember for what he is, a weak politician who betrayed. So here's the word again, betrayed Israel and abandoned Australia's Jews. You know what abandon means, right? Sometimes people will abandon their dogs on the road. They'll leave them out, or their pets, or they'll abandon even children or other people. Okay, so yeah, to give up. Okay, so why don't we say together, abandoned. Abandoned. We even have abandoned houses, right? Sometimes you see a house and there's nobody living there and it's abandoned. I was reading the last year or two that in Japan, there's more and more abandoned houses because the owners died, right? And there's no family. And so sometimes I've heard you can buy a house in Japan in a small town for very, very cheap because nobody wants it. Yeah. So, yeah. Okay, so let's read this together. History will remember Albanese for what he is. A weak politician who betrayed Israel and abandoned Australia's Jews. Netanyahu wrote on social media on Tuesday. Okay. I treat leaders of other countries with respect. I engage with them in a diplomatic way, Albanese said yesterday. I don't take these things personally. Increasingly, there is global concern, and global concern because people want to see an end to the cycle of violence that we have seen for far too long. That is what Australians want to see as well. Okay, so it means I treat leaders of other countries with respect. I respect them. I treat them in a respectful way. I engage with them in a diplomatic way. Okay, now if you act in a diplomatic way, of course, or you speak in a diplomatic way, everybody knows what that means, right? Yeah, it means we don't say things that are too personal. We don't attack people. We're careful about the way we speak. Although today in the world I see lots of undiplomatic language from various leaders, including our American leader. Sometimes he's not very diplomatic. But yeah, so why don't we say it together, diplomatic. Diplomatic. Now he says, I engage with them. Engage with them means to interact, okay? So, we engage with each other every day, right? We talk to people, we greet them, we talk, we meet up with them. That's to engage with people. It doesn't mean 订婚, right? And 订婚 means to get engaged, but here it means to interact with people, to just have to do something with them. So why don't we say it together, to engage with. To engage with. To interact with. To interact with. Right, so we're all interacting with each other right now. We're all engaging with each other right now. We're speaking to each other. Okay, so he says, I engage with them in a diplomatic way. I don't take these things personally. So obviously he thinks that Netanyahu's language is, he's taking this personally, right? This is a very common expression. If you do something and it hurts somebody or they don't like it or they're offended by it and somebody says, don't take it personally, right? Often the expression is, don't take this personally, it's just business, right? Yeah, don't be personal. So let's say, I have a contract with somebody and I break the contract and they're very angry and they're shouting at me and I say, don't take this personally, this is just business, It means this has nothing to do, this is not me personally with you, it's a business deal. Yeah, business, yeah. So anyhow, he says, I don't take these things personally. Increasingly, there's global concern because people want to see an end to the cycle of violence. So cycle means what? Of course, cycle, is like a bicycle or motorcycle, but here it means what? Yeah, it means something that goes around and around and around, right? A cycle of violence means the violence never ends, right? It just keeps going and going and going. So a cycle of violence that we have seen for far too long. Of course, this cycle of violence is between the Israelis and the Palestinians. There's fighting and fighting and fighting and more fighting. Okay, so yeah, sometimes we say a vicious cycle. You know, that's a common expression. Vicious, what does vicious mean? Yeah, it means something, very bad, very harsh, right? If you treat somebody viciously or you use vicious words to criticize somebody, it means you're attacking them, okay? Why don't we say the word vicious? Vicious. We could say a dog is vicious, right? If a dog, if a dog is very aggressive or they want to attack you, we say they're a vicious dog. Don't be careful, that dog is very vicious. It means it likes to attack people. Okay. Okay, so let's read this. I treat leaders of other countries with respect. I engage with them in a diplomatic way. Let's say it again. Diplomatic way. Albanese said yesterday. I don't take these things personally. Personally. Increasingly, there is global concern. Global concern. And global concern because people want to see an end to the cycle of violence. Violence that we have seen for far too long. That is what Australians want to see as well. Okay. So it says here, Australian Minister for Home Affairs Tony Burke on Monday canceled the visa of Israeli lawmaker Simcha Rothman, a member of Netanyahu's coalition, who planned an Australian speaking tour. Now, of course, when you go on a speaking tour, it means you go somewhere and you give a series of speeches, 演讲, right? Maybe you go to this city and you speak, and you go to the next city and you speak. So we call that a speaking tour. Okay, so they canceled the visa of this legislator, this lawmaker, this, like in Taiwan we say 立委, right? Lawmaker. He is a member of Netanyahu's coalition. What's a coalition? Yeah, it's like somebody who's with the same group or someone who is cooperating with you. So it could be the same,党, political party or the same group or whatever, but we say a coalition. A coalition can be between different groups, right? Different cities could be between different countries, but it's like a cooperation. Okay, so why don't we say together coalition? Coalition. Okay, let's read this. Australian Minister for Home Affairs, Tony Burke, on Monday canceled the visa of Israeli lawmaker Simcha Rothman, a member of Netanyahu's coalition. Coalition. Who planned an Australian speaking tour. Okay. It says Burke yesterday accused Netanyahu of lashing out against Australia as he had done against the UK, Canada, France, Ireland, Norway, and Spain over recognition of a Palestinian state. Okay, so when you lash out against somebody, what does that mean? Yeah, it means you attack them verbally with your words, right? If you lash out. Now, to lash is like to whip, right? You know what a whip is, right? WHIP. Yeah. So if you use a whip to lash somebody, like you can say, it used to be like when people were punished, they were sentenced to lash, like 20 lashes, right? Means they were whipped 20 times, or something like that. But here, if you lash out against somebody, it means you attack them very strongly. Not actually punching them, but you use your words to lash out. So if somebody, usually often when people are very upset or angry, or someone has criticized them, they may lash out against that person. So why don't we say it together? Lashing out. Lashing out. Okay, so he's obviously very angry at these countries for recognizing the Palestinian state. So let's read this. Burke yesterday accused Netanyahu of lashing out. Lashing out against Australia, as he had done against the UK, Canada, France, Ireland, Norway, and Spain, over recognition of a Palestinian state. Right, okay. Burke denied that Albanese was weak. Strength is not measured by how many people you can blow up or how many children you can leave hungry, Burke told Australian Broadcasting Corporation. This is like their TV station. Okay, so let's see here. So obviously he's criticizing the Israeli attacks on Gaza, that area called Gaza right now where there's all this fighting. Okay, so so let's read this. Burke denied that Albanese was weak. Strength is not measured by how many people you can blow up or how many children you can leave hungry. Hungry. Burke told Australian Broadcasting Corporation. Corporation. Right, okay. Yeah, I mean, Gaza is, obviously, it's really lawn right now. But, yeah, then there's the West Bank. West Bank, yeah. So, I have to say, there's someone, I read an article the other day by somebody, I forget who wrote this, but I forget, it might have even been written by a Taiwan representative. I forget. It was written in the Washington Post. And it was an opinion article, it was their opinion. But I thought it was very good because they said, this article said, Western nations are very hypocritical. You know what hypocritical means, right? Yeah, because so we have hypocrite, and then we have hypocrisy. Yeah, it means when you say something but you do something else, right? I say this, but I do the opposite. Okay? So why don't we say together, hypocritical. Hypocritical. That's a 形容词. The person, if you are hypocritical, then you are a hypocrite. Let's say hypocrite. Hypocrite. And then 名词, hypocrisy. Hypocrisy. Right, so you could say, I accused him of hypocrisy. Okay, so this article that I saw, it said that many Western countries are hypocritical. Why? Because they recognize a Palestinian state, but they don't recognize Taiwan. That's what they said. They said, why do you recognize a Palestinian state, but yet Taiwan is this major country? Which one? Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah, sorry. Hypocrisy, yeah. Oh, yeah, sorry. I'm missing a whole hypocrite. Yeah. Okay. That's an A, sorry. Sorry. Okay, one more time. Hypocrite. Hypocrite. Hypocrisy. Hypocrisy. Yeah. So they're saying if they recognize Palestine, then why not recognize Taiwan, right? I thought that was a very interesting article. And it was...
If they want to establish diplomatic relations with China, the element, the essential element, they have to recognize Taiwan part of China.
Of course.
Yeah, so it's different from...
Well, but I think I understand the point, though, right? Obviously, China has that requirement, right? The one China policy. But I think the basic argument is a good argument. If you recognize a Palestinian state, which is actually very kind of luan compared to Taiwan. Taiwan is a major power. It's a major, it's a medium-sized country, and it meets every requirement of a country. If you say what is the definition of a country? Well, A, B, C, D, E, F. Taiwan meets all those requirements. So why don't you recognize it? So of course the big issue is China. So, but yeah, it was an interesting article, I think, for them to point this out. So, okay, so yeah, I mean, obviously what's going on in Gaza is a terrible tragedy for everyone. I mean, I think it's a shame that there's not peace there, but yeah, anyhow, I hope they fix this soon. So, okay, so anyhow, let's go on. Yes?
May I make a comment here?
Yeah.
Well, that is back to 1982, 43 years ago. There's a
82, uh-huh.
between Palestine, it's originally PLO has signed.
Right. Liberation Organization, yeah.
And after the war,
Uh-huh.
Israel won the war militarily, but lost politically and diplomatically.
Right.
So the history repeats itself in that, in some way.
Yeah.
You look at this time. But still, maybe the result may be still maybe similar or even the same.
Well, I mean, obviously Israel is under a lot of diplomatic pressure from around the world when it comes to this issue of Gaza. But it's interesting because Israel has always been very uncompromising when it comes to its national security. Now, of course, many people would argue that what's happening in Gaza today is going too far. It goes beyond national security, or it's now come to a place where it's overreaction. But I think that Israel, because of its history, has always taken a very, very hard line about its security. And so I think it's interesting that this attack, back in October of 2023, right, by Hamas against Israel, has triggered this very, very strong reaction. Again, this is very controversial, right? So, but yeah, when you have a small country like Israel and they're surrounded historically by countries who want to wipe them out, you have this kind of situation where they react very strongly. And I think my sense with Gaza is their goal is Hamas must be eliminated, period. Hamas can never come back again. So I think his attitude, and again, this is a very controversial action, what he's doing, but his attitude, or at least his excuse, is that if we let Hamas come back up again, then this problem will keep going. It will never be eliminated. In fact, maybe they will grow strong enough again to attack Israel again. So let's eliminate Hamas once and for all. Let's get rid of it. Let's kill it. But the problem is, how do you do that? I mean, that's difficult in a situation like that. So yeah, I don't know. It's a like we said, it's a cycle of violence, right? It's very hard to figure this out. Yeah. Okay, so let's see here.
Do you think
Yeah, if I knew that, I would be a genius. But I think of course it will, all wars usually end at some point. But I think that, we'll see. I mean, hopefully there's some signs that there's hope for an end to that war. And we'll see what happens. I think, I know a lot of people like to criticize Donald Trump, but I think he's doing what he thinks is best to end that war. And I think he's probably doing more than anybody has done so far to try to end the war. He's actually sat down with Putin, and now he sat down with the Ukrainian leader, and he sat down with the European leaders, and he's trying to figure out a solution. Now, of course, it's not a solution that anybody. It's probably whenever you have you try to find a solution to a war like this. No one's going to be 100% happy, right? Ukraine's not going to be 100% happy because they're probably going to give up some territory, right? Russia is probably not going to be 100% happy because they want more territory, but they don't get everything. So not everybody gets what they want. In fact, nobody gets completely what they want. But if you want to end this war, you have to figure out a solution, compromise. And so, does everybody know the word compromise? Yeah, it's a good, compromise means you give something and I give something, right? Now, compromise can also have a negative idea in that if you have certain ideas or values that are important to you and you compromise something, it means that you betray it. Okay, we talked about the word betray, right? So if you compromise your values or you compromise your beliefs or you compromise the security of something, it means you betray it, you hurt it. But compromise, if you're negotiating, compromising is usually a good thing. It means that, let's say, okay, I'll give you this and then you give me something, right? It's like, remember we talked about the reciprocal, right? We both give something, right? So compromise is a good word in negotiation. So why don't we say together, compromise. Compromise. Right. So obviously in this negotiation there needs to be some compromise between Ukraine and Russia. And And one thing I agree with what Donald Trump says. He says, look, we just need to stop this fighting. There's people getting killed, many people getting killed every single day. So let's just stop this now. Let's figure out a way to stop this. And, he's doing what he can to try to do that. So, and yes. Oh, what does that mean? Oh yeah, it's an expression used to criticize Trump. Trump always chickens out. Yeah. You know the word to chicken out? What does that mean? Chicken out means to run away, to give up. Okay, chicken is G. When I was a little kid, if you called somebody a chicken, it means they were a coward, right? If you say you're a chicken. So yeah, I mean, it's funny that people use that to criticize him, but what are they doing? What are they? Do they have a better solution? Did anybody else do anything? Does anyone else have better ideas? Do we just want to fight for the next 20 years? What solution is there? And I think he's come to the point where he's like, well, let's figure this out. Let's do something here. So yeah, I mean, he gets criticized for meeting with Putin, right? He says, oh, how can you meet with this guy? How can you invite him to Alaska to meet with you? But if you don't meet with him, then what's the solution? Because I'll tell you this: Russia will fight for the next 10 years. They don't care. They'll throw as many soldiers and men at this solution. They'll get as many people killed. They won't give up. They'll just keep fighting. So I think he's saying, well, what are we going to do about this? Europe wants security. Ukraine wants security too, of course. And I think this is where, and again, who knows? I mean, I'm just reading what I read. But I think it sounds like Donald Trump also wants to have a solution where Ukraine's future security is guaranteed. Like he said, I heard him say, he said, I don't want this war to start again in 1 or 2 years from now. I want this to be a finish, and there's not going to be another war in the future. So we're going to find a way to stop the war, and then we're going to find a way to guarantee Ukraine's security. And to me, that sounds reasonable. You know, again, I resent it when people criticize somebody, but then they don't have a better solution. You know, they just say, oh, he's this or he's that or he's that. And I'm like, well, okay, what are you doing? You know, come up with, give me something better then. You know, what solution do you have? So yeah. Anyhow, it's controversial, and you know, it's difficult. So they're very scared, but there's, you know, of course they're scared of Russia, and they're scared of, you know, of course they want Donald Trump on their side, but again, I think that it almost, again, I feel like it takes somebody with a very strong personality to come in and basically say, this is what we're going to do. And if we don't do this, you know, I'm going to punish you. So, yeah. I think hopefully we'll find a solution that's good for everybody, that guarantees European security, that guarantees Ukraine's security, and that stops the fighting, you know, on both sides. Like Donald Trump's very funny because he loves to say things like, he likes to say, oh, I'm really good friends with so-and-so, and I like these people. And he always says that. He always says, oh, we're really good friends. I'm good friends with so-and-so, and I'm good friends with so-and-so. And I heard him say, he goes, I love the Ukrainian people, but I also love the Russian people. And he goes, you know, he likes to talk that way. And yeah, so I think that's part of his strategy. He's like, oh yeah, he's a good guy, we're good friends, and he's a good guy, and he's not going to do this. And yeah, that's the way he talks. But yeah. And, you know, and it's probably, you know, maybe that works. I mean, in business negotiations, you say, oh, yeah, I like you. You're a good guy. You know, and now you need to give me a good deal, right? So, yeah. Yeah. Okay, so here, I read this today. We don't normally look at articles from the sports section, but I did see this article today. It's a different style. But it says, Mexican boxer deported from U.S. over alleged ties. Okay, ties, of course, means relationships, right? Now, obviously in America recently, many people have been deported. What does deport mean? Yeah, basically means you get kicked out of the country, right? I know in Taiwan, if you're a 外国人 and you overstay your visa, right? You know, we all have like 签证, right? And some people, their visas have limits, right? How long you can stay. And so sometimes it's interesting, now and then I hear about the police will catch somebody that's been here for like 10 years over their visa, right? They've been here for a very, very long time, but their visa expired 10 years ago. So then they are deported. They are kicked out, okay? They have to leave, okay? So why don't we say it together? To deport. To deport. Okay, so you know, you've heard that word import, export, and then this sounds like similar, like deport means to kick out. Okay, so this is a Mexican boxer. What is a boxer? Yeah, it's a sport, of course, boxing. So this guy was deported. It says here, former champion boxer Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. has been detained in Mexico after deportation, so that's a noun, by the U.S., to face charges of involvement with a drug cartel, Mexican authorities said on Tuesday. So this guy is a former champion boxer, like he's a big winner. So, of course, with this Spanish word, this is pronounced with a H. So we say Julio, okay? Not Julio, but Julio, so it's like an H. That's Shibaya, you know, Spanish. Cesar Chavez Jr. What does junior mean? Junior. Yeah. So if your name is the same as your father's name, then you are junior. Okay? I know some people, some of my friends that have this, they hate being called junior, right? It sounds very like, but you know, sometimes they'll just, instead of saying the same name, they'll say they'll call him junior. Okay? But if it's the third person, you know, like, or the fourth person, then we just add the third. Like we say, so-and-so the third, so-and-so the fourth, because they just have the same name. But if it's only the second person, like the second, we would often say junior, okay? And it's interesting because it's only used with men. I've never seen this with females. They only use the term junior for men. Actually, that's a very interesting term because I wonder why I very seldom see women who have the same name as their mothers. In fact, now that I think about it, I've never seen that before, where a girl gets the exact same name as her mother. It's always the man, the boy, that gets the exact same name as the father. Now, of course, if we're referring to the father, then we call him senior. You know, you might say so-and-so senior or so-and-so junior, okay? Why don't we say together, junior? Junior. Okay. Now, junior, of course, also means, besides this, junior also means someone who is lower than you. You know, it's their second. Like, and of course, if you're in high school, you know, like 高中, we have freshman. What is, after freshman, you have what? What's the second year?
Junior.
Not junior. Sophomore. And then junior. And then senior. Now, I know in Taiwan, high school only is 3 years, right? But in America, we have usually 4 years of high school. So you all know, you've heard those names before, right? Okay. We say freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. Yeah. And we use this for university too, 大学. Okay, like 一年级, 二年级. They don't say anything. They just say first year, second year, yeah. But yeah, if there's 4 years, then we could use this, yeah. Why don't we say together, freshman. Freshman. Sophomore. Sophomore. Junior. Junior. Senior. Senior. Yeah. Sometimes the word freshman and sophomore gets used in other ways to express the idea of someone in their first year or second year of something. Like, let's say you are a legislator, like a 立委, right? And someone might say, oh, they're a freshman legislator. It means they're in their first year. Or we could say a sophomore, the second year. But yeah, it's not official. We don't officially use those names. Yeah. 菜鸟. Oh. Yeah.
You have fraternity and sorority.
Yeah.
And fraternity, what is the most famous fraternity in the United States?
I don't know. There's so many, right? Yeah. I was never into that culture. I think we talked about this a long time ago, but it's a big deal. In American universities, a fraternity is like a club for students. Sorority. Yeah, I think I'm spelling that sorority. Sorority? Yeah. So sorority is a club for female students, and it's a big deal because you have to be chosen by that group to join that fraternity or sorority, and you usually have to go through a series of tests for them to accept you. Initiations. We call that initiation. So, and sometimes this initiation includes something we call hazing. And hazing is when you actually treat somebody very badly to initiate them. Hazing takes place in the military a lot. So, you know, soldiers, when they're being trained, sometimes the older soldiers will abuse them, and we call that hazing. So hazing, sometimes, now at most American universities today, they have rules about hazing because it got a little bit crazy. It got a little bit out of control. But sometimes there still is some hazing as part of it. So basically, if you are a freshman at university and there's many fraternities at that school, and you say, I want to join that fraternity, basically you go to them and say, I would like to be part of your fraternity. And then they have to look at you and they say, well, okay, we will consider you, but you have to go through all this initiation, these steps, for us to approve you. And some of those steps are basic things, normal things, and some of them are a little bit crazy. But they ask you to do those things. And then when you're done with those things, if they still accept you, then you can join their fraternity or their sorority. And then often on the university or near the university, they have a fraternity house or sorority house. It's actually a house, or it's almost like a dormitory. But you live there, and that belongs to that fraternity or sorority. And they have many activities, they have many parties, they have many but it's did they have this in Taiwan universities? Probably not. Okay. It's a big deal, and these fraternities and sororities almost all have, their names are Greek, Shila. They have Greek names, like the one next to when I lived at university, the one next, it was called Sigma Pi. Okay. And then, they all have like Greek letters, like Delta, Delta, Kappa. I'm making this up, but these are all Greek letters, okay? So Sigma Pi, Delta, Kappa, they all have these kinds of names. And so there was a fraternity for sports, guys who were into sports. They were all athletes. There was a fraternity for, I don't know, there's many different fraternities. But yeah, some of them are a little bit crazy. The Sigma Pi, the one right next to where I lived in my dormitory, they had parties every single weekend. They would start on Thursday night, and they would party all weekend. And they would get very, very drunk. Some of their initiations some of these fraternities or initiations are pretty crazy. One morning I woke up, this is in Philadelphia, and it was wintertime, 冬天, and it was cold, it was snowing, and I heard all this noise outside, and basically all these guys who were trying to initiate, they were running down the middle of the street. There's a big major road there, city street, and they were all wearing their 内裤, their underwear, and the sister sorority, the girls, were throwing ice water on them as they ran down through the snow, and so that was one of their initiations. Some that got pretty crazy, like not at my school, but I heard there was this one where they would say, okay, you have to be in a box. They put person in a box, and they put them on the railroad tracks, the 铁路, and they say you have to, we'll take you off the tracks before the train comes. What they don't know is they don't put it on the 铁路. They put it right next to the 铁路, right? So it's, here's the 铁路, and so they put the box next to the tracks, right? So the person's in the box, and they think that they're on the tracks, and the train's coming. They can hear the train coming, and nobody's moving them, right? But then, so then they're really scared. They think they're going to get killed, right? But they're not actually on the, do you understand what I'm saying? They're not on the 铁路. They're actually next to the 铁路. That's the kind of crazy stuff, and some people have been killed doing these initiations. So finally many universities said, 算了, we're not going to allow hazing anymore. If you want to join a fraternity or sorority, you can do this, but you can't haze people. You can't do that. And of course, many militaries, they don't allow hazing anymore either. So anyhow, that's a bit off the topic. But yeah, so anyhow, let's just say these words together. Fraternity. Fraternity. Sorority. Sorority. One thing I just add about these, if you join a fraternity, it's a lifetime membership. So after you graduate from university, if you need a job, you talk to your fraternity brothers. And they're the people who graduated from your university. You go to them, they'll help you. Often they'll help you find a good job. They'll help you find, if you need 关系 with somebody, those are the people you talk to. And so if you go to schools like Harvard or Yale or Columbia University, they're not called fraternities, but they're special secret societies, organizations, and they are very, very powerful. Like if you look at many American presidents, they all belong to the same organization at Yale University, 耶鲁大学. Like Bush, 小布希, Obama, they all belong to the same groups. So anyhow, it's a whole different world. So yeah. Okay, so anyhow, it says here, why has this guy been deported? Because he has been charged with involvement with a drug cartel. What's a cartel? Yeah, a cartel is basically an illegal organization. And often we use this word for drug organizations. They're big organizations, and they sell drugs, they manufacture drugs and things like that. So why don't we say it together? Cartel. Cartel. Okay, so let's read this. Former champion boxer. Let's say it again. Champion boxer. Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. has been detained in Mexico after deportation. Again, deportation by the U.S. to face charges of involvement with a drug cartel. Drug cartel. Mexican authorities said on Tuesday. Now, sometimes I see this word cartel. It can be used with business. You can say a business cartel. It's like a organization, a business organization. But this word usually gets used with something that it's illegal, like a drug cartel. It's like an organization. Okay, so it says here, Chavez stands accused of serving as a henchman for the powerful Sinaloa drug cartel, which Washington designated a foreign terrorist organization this year, and of trafficking firearms and explosives. Okay, now it says here stands accused. Stands accused means he is accused. If you say this person stands accused, it means they have been accused of. Okay, of serving as. Now this is a very funny word, henchman. It's a word, sometimes we still use. Does anyone know what a henchman is? Yeah, it's basically somebody who is like someone who is a follower. I learned this word in Chinese a long time ago. Is it 庄脚 or something like? Is it 庄脚? Somebody who helps you do something, right? Like illegally, right? Is that the correct word? Did I say that right? Okay. So basically, if you're like a boss, like the crime boss, and you have all these guys helping you do stuff, right? Yeah, like 小弟, right? Yeah. They call it a henchman. Okay. So a henchman is always used for criminal activity. There's no good henchman, right? It's always a bad henchman. Okay, but it's a funny word, and we still use it for this idea. So why don't we say together, henchman? Henchman. Of course, a henchman is usually low level, right? They're not high level, they're low level. Okay, of the powerful Sinaloa drug cartel. So I've heard of this drug cartel before. It's a very large organization, which Washington has designated. Now, instead of designate, we could say has named. Okay, they have named this as a foreign terrorist 恐怖分子 organization, and he's also accused. This guy is accused of trafficking firearms. Now, if you traffic something, what does that mean? Yeah. It means you transport and sell things, right? Now, when we talk about trafficking, we almost always use this word as a illegal, something that's 违法, right? So what can be trafficked? We can traffic drugs, we can traffic firearms, and what is another word for firearm? Weapons, right? 武器, right? Weapons. Now, when we say firearms, we usually are talking about guns. Any kind of gun. So a firearm would be a gun. It's not like a missile or a 飞弹 or something like that. It's a gun. But we call those firearms, okay? So trafficking firearms and explosive. Of course, explosive is anything that blows up, right? Like a bomb, okay? Or TNT or something like that. But trafficking, it could be drugs, it could be firearms, but it could also be people, right? If you're trafficking people, often the people are being moved illegally from one country to another, sometimes because it's for, we say, human slavery, smuggling or slavery or other reasons, right, where people are moved illegally. So trafficking is an illegal thing. Okay, why don't we say it together? Trafficking. Trafficking. Okay, so let's read this together. Chavez stands accused of serving as a henchman for the powerful Sinaloa drug cartel, which Washington designated a foreign terrorist organization. One more time, terrorist organization. This year. And of trafficking, firearms and explosives. Explosives. Okay, I just want to remind you that even though this word is design, right? When we say to as a 动词, we pronounce the G. So we say designate. Okay, so one more time, designate. Designate. Yeah, okay. So it says here, according to Mexican media, which claim to have had access to the case files, Chavez 39 was allegedly a hitman used to punish members of the cartel. Okay, so this is what the Mexican Métis is saying. He was allegedly, of course we're not 100% sure, it's not in court yet, but allegedly. Now, this is another where we talked about henchmen. What is a hitman? Yeah, it's like an assassin. It's somebody who kills other people. So what is, if we use the word assassinate, to assassinate, okay, what does that mean? To kill, right? But not just any killing. It's to actually kill somebody, usually because you've been ordered to kill that person. You've been given a job to kill somebody. So they are assassinated. Of course, when we talk about assassinate, often it's like somebody like a leader of a country. Like President Kennedy was assassinated, right? President Lincoln was assassinated too. So the person who, did I spell that right? Is it two S's? A-S-S-I, I think that's correct. Yeah. Anyhow, assassin. Why don't we say it together? Assassin. Assassin. Is it two S's? Is it the back?
Yeah, back.
But, so it's, but two S's here, right? Okay, sorry. Yeah. So yeah, sorry. So that's two S's and then two S's. Okay, sorry. So why don't we say it again one more time? Assassin. Assassin. To assassinate. To assassinate. Okay. So an assassin would be the same thing as a hitman. Okay. You know, if you're like the mafia, you know what the mafia is, right? So the mafia says, okay, you're going to go kill that guy because, you know, we don't want him around anymore. That person's called a hitman. They go out and they do that job. Sniper's different. A sniper is someone that works for the military, usually for the military, okay? And a sniper is somebody who is, they use a rifle and they can shoot long distances. But we would not call them an assassin. Of course, an assassin could be a sniper, but a sniper is not an assassin. Okay, or a sniper is not usually if you work for the military. Yeah. Hit woman. I guess you would say hit woman. I think they would probably still use the word hitman. Yeah, but I guess female hitman or I guess you could say hit woman. That sounds kind of weird, but yeah. It's funny. Hollywood has made many movies about the mafia, right? And there's something very fascinating about mafia movies, but in a mafia movie, there's always a hitman, and there's always a henchman. Remember we talked about, or many henchmen, there was a very, very popular, I'm trying to remember the name of it. There was a very popular TV show in America back about the Sopranos. Yeah. If you ever watch this show, it's, yeah. Sorry, that's soprano. Yeah, that's an A. It was a very popular American TV show called The Sopranos, and it was a TV series about a mafia family. Now their last name is Soprano, and the head guy, the head of this mafia group, his name was Tony Soprano, and they lived in New Jersey, just outside of New York. And it's very funny because if you go on YouTube, some people, there's YouTube where they just show all the people getting killed in that TV show. Because of course there's mafia, so this guy gets killed and that guy gets killed and that guy gets killed, and anyhow, people, like to watch that show. Yeah, it's a little bit like Al Capone, yeah. Okay, so let's read this. According to Mexican media, which claim to have had access to the case files, Chavez, 39, was allegedly a hitman. Used to punish members of the cartel. Okay. I was just thinking, if you think about Hollywood actors, there's certain actors that became very famous playing mafia characters. They, over and over and over and over again, they played mafia people like Robert De Niro, right? Al Pacino, Marlon Brando. What's his name? Joe Pesci. Joe Pesci's very funny. I don't know if you know this guy. He's very short. But it's funny because he's in the mafia movies, he's really, really a frightening, scary character. But then he was also in another movie where he's completely different. Do you ever see the movie Home Alone? You know the movie Home Alone? Yeah. He also plays in that movie where he's a very funny character. So whenever I look at him, I think this is a really good actor, right? Because he can play a very frightening character, a very brutal character, and a very funny character. Both sides he can do. So, yeah. 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 Well, because that's where they came from. So the mafia started in Sicily. Okay, so that's where the mafia, the families and everything, their origin is from there. So if you look at, even if you watch the movies, if you want to be a core member of the mafia, your family has to be Italian. You cannot, now it's very funny, not funny, but if you watch, not The Godfather, but, there's another big movie, Goodfellas, yeah. Goodfellas, the movie shows you that there are many people that work with the mafia, but because they're not Italian, they can never become part of the inner circle. Like they might be Irish, Ireland. They might be from, Irish or some other nationality. If you're not Italian, you cannot join the inner circle of the mafia. You have to be from an Italian or Sicilian family. Yeah. Or Chinese. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes the mafia works with other groups. They cooperate, but you cannot join there. So, I think we've talked about this before. The Chinese mafia is known as the triads, right? Yeah. Yeah. So, and I'm sure there's a Korean mafia. And, of course, the Japanese are known as the Yakuza, right? Yeah. So, so anyhow, lots of organized crime. Yeah. Okay, so here it says, so that's a photo caption. It says, Well, this is kind of brutal. He says, he hangs them and grabs them like a punching bag, the Reforma newspaper reported, citing testimony in the prosecutor's documents. Okay, do you know what a punching bag is? Okay, if you're a boxer, there's a bag. And in fact, I was outside of Qimei Chengping the other day, and they have a punching bag in front, and you can they challenge people. And I was out there, and I saw this, like ama, and she was punching the bag, and I was watching her, and she looked like she was angry about something, but she was punching that bag. So I think it's a way to relieve your stress, right? You go out there and you punch the bag. But that's called a punching bag, okay? So if somebody, we use it as an expression sometimes. If you say, I'm just your punching bag, it means that maybe you just criticize me, you attack me because you're just using me to take out your stress, right? It doesn't mean they're really punching you, but they're attacking you, right? Okay, so it says, so of course a prosecutor is like the 检察官, right? They're the ones investigating this, okay? So let's read this. He hangs them and grabs them like a punching bag. Punching bag. The Reforma newspaper reported. Citing testimony in the prosecutor's documents. Documents. We've talked about this before. What is a testimony? It's when you testify. It means when you give an account, you talk about something. So if you go to the 法院 and the judge will ask you to give a testimony, it means you tell your story. You share your what you want to say. And that comes from like he said, the word to testify means to give an account. Sometimes we say to give an account. Okay? What happened? What's going on? What's your story? To give an account. Okay, to testify means to tell your story. Okay? So why don't we say it together? To testify. To testify. Testimony. Testimony. To give an account. To give an account. Now we can also say to give a testimony, right? We can say that too. It's the same idea. Okay, so this is something we often use. Okay, so it says here the U.S. Attorney General's office has withheld details of the indictment. What's an indictment? Isn't it called a 起诉书, right? 起诉, yeah, it's a document, right? Now, I want to remind you that to 起诉 is to indict, right? Remember this word, we do not pronounce the C. So we say to indict, okay? So why don't we say it together? To indict. To indict. Indictment. Indictment. Okay. So it says here, Chavez was handed over on Monday and transferred to a prison in Mexico's northwest Sonora state. Information on the country's national detention registry showed. Okay, let's just read the second paragraph. Well, penitentiary is usually a large prison. And it's usually, I think usually that name is used for a federal, a national government prison. Yeah, like not a local prison. So it says here, he was deported, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum told reporters, adding that there was an active arrest warrant for him in Mexico. Does anyone know what a warrant is? Yeah. A search warrant. So there's different kinds of warrant. It's a document from the government, usually from the court, that says that the police are allowed to do something. So I think Taiwan's the same as the U.S. If I want to search your home, I need to have a warrant from the court that says the police are allowed to look through your documents or look through your office or look through your home. But an arrest warrant means the police are allowed to go arrest that person. So it's like a special document, and you have to go to the judge and say, I want a warrant to search their house, or I want a warrant to arrest that person. or maybe the judge gives out a warrant. So why don't we say it together? A warrant. Warrant. Now, I heard somebody say 保证. Warranty is different. A warranty is your insurance when you buy something, right? So let's say you buy a new iPhone, right? And you say, well, if I buy this iPhone, how long is the warranty? And they might say 1 year warranty. So that means that if this iPhone breaks within 1 year, they will fix it for free. Well, hopefully for free. Yeah, it's like a guarantee. But often we talk about how many years a warranty is. Maybe it's 1 year, maybe it's 5 years, maybe it's even 10 years. But a warranty is like a guarantee. It's like saying we will fix this. We will guarantee it will be okay. Okay. So why don't we say it together? Warranty. Warranty. Okay, but that's different from a warrant. Okay, just remember, it's not. Yeah. Right.
It's always must be, police officer must be
Miranda, it's called a Miranda rights. So whenever a police officer arrests you in America, he must read your rights to you, your 权利. So you have the right to remain silent. You have the right to call an attorney, a lawyer. And I think there's other rights too. But basically, when somebody arrests you, if they ask you questions, you don't have to answer them. You can call your lawyer, and they can be there present with you. So those are called the rights, your 权利. And that's why whenever a policeman or policewoman or a police officer arrests you, they have to read you those rights. They have to tell you you have those rights right now. You know. So yeah, that's always, yeah. I think it's always. Yeah. Yeah.
State prosecutor,
Mm-hmm.
lady, who was arrested by police officer.
Yeah.
And she claimed, you just announced Miranda.
Right. You haven't Mirandized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you are against the due process.
Right.
But it's okay. Not always.
Well, I don't know if they have to announce those things immediately, or maybe when they take you to the police station, or I don't know. But yeah, if you don't Mirandize somebody, that's probably your fault, right? That's a mistake. You should tell them what their rights are. But maybe they thought the prosecutor already knew her rights. So yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. I think you're supposed to tell people their rights every time. So yeah. Okay, so let's read this. Of course, you know what the Attorney General is, right? It's like but it's the highest level. It's like the 美国中央政府检察官. It's检察长, yeah, Attorney General. Yeah. So let's read this together. The U.S. Attorney General's office has withheld details of the indictment. I forgot to mention, this is a simple word, but what does to withhold mean? To not share, to hold back, right? So if somebody says, you know what, I think you are withholding information from me, it means you're not telling me everything. You're not giving me everything I need to know, so you're withholding that from me. I'll tell you where this also gets used. If we have, when you pay taxes, okay, there are certain things that can be withheld. You don't have to pay tax on everything, right? There are certain things you can withhold from those taxes. Okay, so yeah, let's keep going here. Let's read this. It says, Chavez was handed over on Monday and transferred to a prison in Mexico's northwest, Sonora State. Information on the country's National Detention Registry showed he was deported Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum told reporters, adding that there was an active arrest warrant for him in Mexico. Okay, so this is not just the U.S. kicking him out. This is Mexico also wants to arrest this guy. They have a warrant out for his arrest. So sometimes, you know, when the police stop somebody in America, they might check their files and they might say, oh, there's an arrest warrant out for this person, so then they arrest them. It may be not because they're speeding or driving wrong, but it's because they see this person should be arrested, so they arrest them. Yeah. If you want to see American police in action, just watch YouTube. There's many YouTube videos about police dealing with people in America. Because, you know, I think like Taiwan, the police all have to wear a body, we call it a body cam. Cam means camera, right? C-A-M. So we call that a body cam. It's a camera the police wear. And so those body cams provide all kinds of video of what the police are doing. And I think some police departments will, after the case is finished, they will release this body cam video so you can see what's going on or what's happening. But yeah, and I have to say, after watching those YouTube videos, I'm very happy I'm not a police officer, because they have to deal with so much garbage, right? I mean, stuff that's so difficult. People, you know, that are drunk, or people that are on drugs, or people that are very aggressive, or people that just don't, you know, it's just, it seems like a really difficult job. So yeah, yeah, I'm happy they're there. I'm happy the police are doing their job, and I respect them, but it's a difficult job. Yeah. Okay, let's read one more paragraph, and then I think we'll be done. It says here, U.S. authorities arrested Chavez last month for being in the country illegally. They also said he was wanted in Mexico for alleged ties to the Sinaloa cartel, one of the 6 Mexican drug trafficking groups designated as terrorist organization by the U.S. So there's actually 6 different cartels that the U.S. says these are terrorist organizations because they're selling drugs, and of course many people are dying from those drugs. So, but he was also in the country illegally. He was in the U.S. illegally, so they've arrested him. And he was wanted in Mexico. You know, it's funny, if you watch a lot of Western movies, right, they have these posters that say, wanted, right? Wanted for this crime. And you know, this is a guy that they want to arrest him, right? But it's funny, if you go to America today, even if you go to the Yoju, the post office, there's usually a poster from the FBI and says, these people are wanted for these crimes. If you see them, call us, you know, report them. Yeah. Okay, so let's read this. U.S. authorities arrested Chavez. Last month for being in the country illegally. Illegally. They also said he was wanted in Mexico for alleged ties to the Sinaloa cartel. Cartel. One of 6 Mexican drug trafficking groups. Drug trafficking groups. Designated as terrorist organizations by the U.S. Okay. I just want to make one small point, because he asked this question before. If we say jail, and then we say prison, jail is where, when you're arrested, they put you in jail. Okay? That's usually in a police station. But a prison is when, after you've been found guilty, when the court says, okay, you're you committed, you're guilty, then you go to prison, okay? And then he mentioned another word, penitentiary, which is a longer word. I hope I spell this right. Penitentiary. I think that's spelled right. I think that's right. But this is more like we use this for a national 国家 prison. Because, there's different levels of prisons, right? There's a state prison, and then there's the federal. Federal means 中央政府, a federal penitentiary. So if you commit a really serious crime, you might go to the federal penitentiary. It's like a central 中央 prison. But, someone says, sometimes people get mixed up. They say jail, but jail is only like when you're just arrested and they put you in a jail in the police station to hold you. Or, it's just usually short term. So why don't we say together, jail, jail, prison, prison, penitentiary, penitentiary. Yeah, I've never seen this word used in Taiwan. I think it's specifically for the U.S. In Taiwan, we generally use that word, prison, right? Yeah. 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 Yeah, it's a very high security prison for, if you're, a bad criminal, I guess. Yeah, it's, very high secure. Okay, good. So any other questions? Anything else? Yeah. It means fighter. Somebody likes to fight. Yeah. Boxer, yeah, punching, yeah. But it's not a common word. I mean, we don't use it. Boxing or boxer is usually more of a common word, yeah. Okay, good. Well, we'll see you next time. Enjoy the beautiful weather, and see you.
Thank you.
All right.